Alright, good morning. So I've been asked a lot to make this skirt that everybody wants, and it's a very simple skirt. And so I made a couple, made one for my daughter, well, two for my daughter, and I made one for her friend at church. And I've been asked if this is only for kids or if adults can wear it too. The answer is yes, you can wear it if you want. It is a gathered skirt, very simple skirt to make. And so I'm going to demonstrate it using this material. This is Ankara fabric and it's 6 yards already. Um, that's how it comes, 6 yards. And so the the goal for this skirt is to make it, if you want it to be really gathered a lot, or if you want it to be a little gathered but not too much, that means it's not too much on you when you wear it. That would determine how many yards of fabric you use. For an adult, you can use either 2 yards or 3 to 4 yards, depending on how much you want it to look, like how closely gathered you want it to look. So in this case, I'm going to make it using my measurement so you can actually see it and try it out. A few things that you'll need is the fabric. You need a roll of elastic. I'm using 1 inch white elastic, scissors, and some pins. Actually, the pin you'll use is a safety pin that you will put the elastic through the skirt. Once you're done, you need a setup for your ironing board and also an iron already set up over here. And then you need a sewing machine, which I put it to the side so I can have space to cut the material. That's pretty much all you need. It doesn't take that much, but let's get started. So I'm going to fold this over a little bit so I can cut my material. I am going to use 3 yards of fabric, just because I want it to be a lot more gathered than just simple gathered. So I'm going to open this, and this is how the material comes. It's folded by yard, so from here to here is 36 inches, and most of the time you don't need a tape to measure it. You do need this for the sewing. Alright, so because I'm going to use 3 yards of fabric, I'm just going to cut out 3 yards, and pretty much one. This is the second one and the third one, so it means I'm going to cut it from this end. Alright, so once we cut that out, set it aside and we fold this back up, because if you don't fold it back up, then you lose the yardage measurement. So I like to fold mine back up so that I know that when I pick it up, that's 3 yards. Okay, put that aside and then bring this back up. And so we know that this material is measured by 36 inches by 45. And so you can decide how long you want your skirt. For me, I wear my skirt from here, and so I'm just gonna measure here to where I want my skirt to stop. So basically, I'd like it to stop at 23 inches. So with the 23 inches, I'm gonna add 3.5 inches for the elastic on the top, and then I'm gonna add a sewing allowance for the bottom. So that's 23 plus 1 inch sewing allowance. That's 24, 25, 26, 27.5. So I'm going to cut 27.5 for my length, and that should cover all of it. So because this material is already folded, I do cheat a little bit. It's folded neatly, so I don't need to worry about the measurement. However, I'm still going to press it to get all the kinks out. And so I'm going to measure 27.5 inches. And before I start that, I'm going to cut out my selvage end, which is about 1 inch. That includes the brand of the material. Alright, so that's done. So now I'm going to measure 27.5 inches. This is always a nice thing to have, is a chalk that can mark your material for you, that way you don't forget. This is 27.5 inches. So I'm measuring here. We do the same for this side. 27.5 inches. Then you're gonna use a long ruler. Right through. Once you're done with that, because the material is already folded nicely, I can fold it in 3 and just cut. However, if it's not folded nicely, you have to open it up and make sure you're cutting it straight. So I'm just gonna cut the 27.5 inches for me. And this is the pieces that's left. You can set this aside for something else. Alright, so this is what we're gonna work with. And you open it up, it's pretty long. So what we're gonna do, first of all, is to join the edge, right sides facing each other. So you're gonna run a stitch. Big material to go through. You're gonna run a stitch to join them together. So right here, I'm gonna run a stitch and then I'll come back and talk about it. So let's bring my sewing machine over here. Okay, sewing machine ready. Alright, make sure you set up your stitch length depending on how much you want. The standard is 2.5. You can increase it or decrease it, it's up to you. The thread that I already have is black, so that's perfect. And then I have the bobbin is black as well. So I'm just going to run that stitch to close that, the two ends of the material. Alright, starting from the top, I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Actually, I'm going to use a 1/4. And then you're going to remember the back stitch. Never mind, hold on. It's my thread came out, so now we got to put the thread back in before we get started. Oh goodness, I need my glasses. Okay. Alright, thread's back in. Okay, now we can get started. So we're gonna sew 1/4 inch seam allowance, straight stitch down. Remember to back stitch at the beginning and at the end. And if you're just starting out on this journey, you want to make sure that you sew as slow as possible. I need to rush this. And make sure you don't sew your hand. Your job is to guide the material through the sewing machine. The sewing machine does have a way of pulling the material out, but you just want to guide it to make sure it's sewing straight. And that's really what I'm doing right now. And don't forget that you're sewing right sides facing each other. And then we're getting to the end here. So we're gonna do looks like the thread came out. So let's go back and rethread it. If you're running into situations like this, you know for sure that your tension is probably too tight and you want to release the tension on your machine. Alright, the thread is back in. I'm gonna drop my tension. It's right now at 4. I like to keep it at 4, so I'm just gonna drop my stitch length a bit. And let's keep going. Front and back stitch where we stopped. And at the end as well. Alright, so that's done. Now the next step is to go into the pressing part. You want to press your material as much as you can, because if your project is not properly pressed, then it's not going to be as neat as possible. So what I'm going to do now is to go in and open the stitch and press it. That way I don't have any bulk. I use the heat because it does remove the wrinkles or any of the, it presses it better when you use the heat feature of your iron. So now I'm just going to go into, move the camera a little bit so you can see. I'm going to go into any of the crease in the material and try to iron that out. So that's all I'm doing right now, is just ironing out all the crease in the material, and that's really where the folds were. Alright, so that should be done, and then you'll have something like this once you're done. Alright, so at this point you want to determine, this is the wrong side. You want to determine if your material is directional. You want to determine which side faces up or faces down. But this one, it really doesn't matter because they're all the same design and they're going pretty much the same direction. So you can use this as a top or you can use the bottom as a top, it doesn't matter. But what we're going to do now is to fold a quarter of an inch in. We're just going to fold it in and then we're going to iron through the whole thing. So we're folding a quarter of an inch at the side that you decide that would be the top, and just iron that so it looks something like so. Okay. And this really is to give your skirt that finished look. If you have a serger, you may skip this step and just serger the top, but I like a clean finished look, so I like to just fold mine in. So I'm just gonna iron quarter of a seam all around the skirt. So again, this is a really simple skirt. You can make it already all the way to the other side, so that's good. You can make it with any material, any color that you like. So once we're done ironing the a quarter inch, now we're going to fold it again about 1.5 inches from the quarter inch. And the best way to measure that is really to pick up your elastic and figure out how much space you need. So basically putting it underneath where I folded, you should have enough room between the elastic and the folded edge that you folded in. You should have enough space to run a stitch through without catching the elastic, okay? And don't forget that you're going to feed in the elastic, so you need some room to wiggle through. And so we're going to do 1.5 inch fold after the 1/4 inch fold. Okay. Right, we're gonna do that and then iron it through like we did the other one. Once you kind of gauge how much material you need, you don't need to measure the whole thing. However, if you're starting new, you might need to, just so you have the peace of mind that you've measured it right. The reason why we're ironing it down first before we sew is so that it stays in place. If you don't iron it down, you may be picking up more or less depending on how you're sewing. So ironing it down just takes away that. And also it's a lot faster if you iron it down. It goes, it sews like super fast when you iron it down, and it's just like really easy if you do that. Right. So we're already to the other side of the material. Now we're going to sew. Let's turn this camera a little bit this way. Move this up. All right, so we're gonna run a stitch, another 1/4 inch stitch from, show you, over here. That's the fold that we did, the first fold, and then we did the second fold. So we're gonna run a stitch right here, about a 1/4 inch stitch seam. So come back to the sewing machine, and before you do that, we want to leave at least two inches from your start to your stop spot. That way we can feed through the elastic. So wherever you start, make sure you put a pin that you're going to stop about 2 inches before your start. Right? Okay. So here we go. Remember to top stitch, back stitch your start and stop. And like I said, it makes it a lot more easy to run this stitch when it's all ironed. So we love that. And all you're doing is just guiding the sewing machine. Okay. So, thread is out again. So we're going to go ahead and thread that again. I'm going to change the thread once we're done with this one. Yeah, this is the handle where you can move your needle manually. Okay. This is really the part nobody likes about sewing. It's when you're just in your groove and the thread comes off. It's like, oh no. Alright, let's keep going. I'm back stitching again, just so I'm protecting that stitch where the thread broke. And then we are almost to the end. Again, if you're a beginner, if you're just beginning your sewing projects, you want to make sure that you go slow. to protect your fingers. This was a big material, so I thought we were almost done. No. We're getting close though. Alright, we're getting close to the end. So don't forget that we have to leave at least 2 inches. That's why I'm putting my finger right there. It should be your 3 fingers. About your 3 fingers together. Alright, so that's done. The skirt's almost done. And what I like to do is, before I put the elastic in, I like to run the stitch on the bottom of the skirt to kind of close it out. That way, once the elastic goes in, it's going to shrink a lot. So it's nicer to have it this way. Now for this one, you can iron it as you did before so that the stitch will go as smooth as possible. So let's go ahead and do that. That way it's something that you are conscious about and you always do that. So we're going to fold it 1/2 inch in and then fold it another 1/2 inch. We're going to do the first 1/2 inch. We're just going to iron it down all through. Right, so we're going to do the other 1/2 inch fold, the second fold. So that makes it a 1 inch. You don't have to do this step if you do not, if you're comfortable with just sewing without ironing. The reason why beginners should start doing this is so that it helps you stay on course. Okay, so that's done. Now we're gonna go get started with the final hem stitch. So go back to the where you joined the two sides and start there to sew. That way it'll be your beginning and your end. Again. It is a big material. If it were kids, it won't take this long. But just because you have to go through so much material as an adult. And that's it. So, I'm gonna move my machine over a bit. And we're almost done with the sewing. Now we're gonna put in the elastic. This is what it looks like right now. And as you can see, that's it. All right. So we're gonna go back to that opening that we left. Turn this inside out to have the right side facing outward. And then I'm gonna find where I did the closing stitch, because that's where the opening is. So just feel your hand through and then you'll find it. This is where it was, right here. Okay? So as you can see, I kept space to feed in the elastic. When it comes to the elastic, you're supposed to measure your waist or wherever you wear your skirt. So if you wear a skirt up on your stomach, above your stomach, or on your waistline, measure that part of you. I like to wear my skirt right above my stomach. And so my measurement is 40 inches. Now, I want to cut 40 inches and give 1 inch sewing allowance so that I can use that to close it. So in total, I'm going to cut 41 inches. So measure 41 or whatever your length is. And cut 41 inches, okay? And then once you're done with that, you want to get your safety pin. I had it. Let me find it. You want 2 safety pins to do this. Pause it and we'll come back. Alright, you need 2 safety pins, one to feed it through and the other one to hold the end of the elastic to the material. That way it doesn't all get feed into it. Alright, so let's go back to where we stopped. Right here. Okay, I'm gonna pin one side of the elastic to the safety pin, like so. And then I'll start feeding it through. Now, when you feed it through, you want to make sure that it stays straight. You don't want a situation where it twists and it doesn't look good. Okay? So go ahead and fit that through. And you're basically pushing it through the hole. And you pull it. Okay? And when you pull it, make sure that it stays straight and doesn't twist, turn inside. Okay? So while I'm doing that, I'm paying attention to my elastic. When it gets to the end of it, I will have to pin it down, okay? You can pin it down if you don't want to make that mistake, but I'm paying attention to it. All right, so we will feed this through, like so, and then we're just adjusting it as we go, okay? As you feed it through, you want to adjust it because this is a large fabric and it'll get super tight the closer you get to the end. Alright, so looks like I'm getting close to the end of my elastic at the beginning. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin it down. That way it doesn't move. Okay, so that's pinned down. Come back here and keep going. Some people use plastic. There's a plastic that you can use to feed the elastic through. If you don't have it, safety pin is always the less expensive way to do it. It doesn't take that long. Alright, do it, make sure you're moving the elastic through. And then we keep going. Okay, I think we're halfway through. Almost there. Okay, we're almost to the end. What about you? But I'm excited to see what it looks like. Really cute. Some people do line the skirt, but I don't really think you should. This material is already thick as it is. You can line it if you want more volume. Alright, so we're at the end. And now what we're going to do is to I'm going to pin it so that I can move the elastic around the material without losing it. So I'm pinning it right at the end, and then I'm going to use this to kind of play around with it. Now, one thing I just noticed with my elastic is that the elastic is really fluid, I guess you call it that, but it's not as tight. Let me see, where is it? See, it doesn't give it has a lot of stretch. There's the word. It has a lot of stretch to it. So the best thing to do is once you're done with this, you can go in, try it on, and see what it looks like, if that's what you want it to look like. All right. We're just going to spread out the elastic so that it's not all jumbled up in one spot. And we just want an even spread of the elastic, okay? And then once we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and try it on. See if you like the fit. If you want to tighten it some more, this is where you make the adjustment. Alright? So I'm just going to put it on. Alright, so that's what it looks like, except that I would like mine a little tighter. And so over here, I move it to the front so you can see. It's a little loose, right? So I want my skirt to be tight, as tight as possible. So when I find the right spread, then I know that's where I want it to stop, right? I can still breathe. I have room here. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and close it out, and then we'll finish it from here. So let me go ahead and pin it. That way I know where mine's gonna end. Some of the elastic that you might use doesn't have a lot of stretch, which is even better for a skirt. But this is the one that I have at home right now. So with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and sew this shot and then come back and show you how to spread it again. So you can do two different stitches. You can either run a stretch stitch at the edge, or you can open it up and overlap it and then do a zigzag stitch. That's better because this is elastic, and if you do a stretch stitch, sometimes it breaks. So zigzagging it is even better. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that on my machine. And select the zigzag stitch and run the stitch. You can run the stitch a few times just to make sure that it's secure. And that's what it looks like when I'm done. Alright? So once that is done, push your elastic in. And remember that we did not close. We have this opening that we need to close. So go ahead and sew that shut. Make sure you don't grab the elastic. You don't sew on the elastic is really what I meant. Right? So I'm just gonna do a stitch right there to close that. It's not a top stitch. Don't forget to send it back to stretch stitch. So now your skirt is done. All you want to do right now is to spread out the gathers. That way every side of the skirt is seeing some type of gather. Alright, so this is the finished product. This is what it looks like. You can wear it any direction that you want. And this is the measurement to my knee. It's beautiful, easy to wear. You can style this with a white shirt. Any color shirt really can go with it. But it's really beautiful and easy to make. And all done. Let me know what you think. I actually like it a lot. And this is what the gathers look like. This is where you're gathering. And see how the finish is so clean. So I love it. That's the finished product. Let me know what you think. Voila. I should put this on. I'll put it on in style and show you a picture. How about that? That's it. Thanks for. This is something that you're interested in. I have classes on sewing machine basics where we actually go through what the sewing machine looks like and all the buttons on the sewing machine. And then I have other classes that we do small projects like this. The next project that I'll be working on is a hair bonnet. Everybody uses that. So we're gonna do a hair bonnet next time. But we do have skirt and then some shorts, summertime. And so if you're interested, follow me, DM me, follow me on YouTube. I have my videos on there as well as my products. So yeah, share my videos and enjoy. Pause and replay and watch it again, because sometimes you may need to watch it a few times just to get through each step. All right, love you. Bye.